Chapter 4. In the morning, I headed out to the village center and asked around to find out where I could find Qilam. Everyone I talked to was surprised I wanted to meet him. Most said it wasn't worth it. It felt like they were trying to protect me from something he might say. But this made me want to meet him even more. What were people so afraid of? Words didn't scare me. I knew it was my choice to believe him or not. I learned that Qilam no longer lived in his home. He abandoned it a few weeks ago and lived in the deeper part of the forest as he preferred to be alone. He used to be a thinker like me, but his thoughts had become unbearable for people. Gradually, he moved away. Finally, the cook in the village kitchen provided the information I was looking for. He told me that I could find him on a walking trail that led to the deep forest. He asked if I could take some food for Qilam, as he had not come in for some in the past few days. I was happy to help. I took the food and left for the trail in the forest. The Serenus probably came here often. The trail was easy to follow, even as it twisted and curved around the trees. The dense tree canopies above me didn't let much sunlight reach the ground, and the vegetation was sparse. The forest was more open than I expected. Looking from outside, it looked much more thickly populated, but once I'd walked for a bit, there were lots of open spaces, although the sky was barely visible. A constant hum surrounded me as I continued walking the trail, looking for Qilam. It was the sound of wind, birds, and bugs, the sounds of life in a living forest. I had never asked anyone if there were dangerous animals in the woods, and the thought bothered me now that I was all alone. Thankfully, it wasn't long before I found Qilam, sitting under a huge tree. He was old, but looked even older than his age. An unkempt beard and messy hair made him look like a sad, dejected fellow. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. He must have been happy to meet someone after staying away from people for days. I told him I brought food and sat by as he ate. I could tell that he was hungry. Still, he was more interested in talking. I told him that I was a newcomer and was supposed to be a thinker. He looked up at me, staring right in my eyes, paused for a bit and said, "There are many better things to do. Don't be a thinker." I didn't expect this answer. Why not? I like to know things. He replied, "Everyone likes to know things. What are you interested in knowing?" I was hoping the conversation would lead to this. I seized the opportunity and said, "I want to know why we came to this island and what is next. And where do we come? People already blame me for Alfred. Do you want me to get in more trouble?" "Alfred? Who is Alfred?" I asked. Who was Alfred? He was a brilliant young man, but he is gone now. Didn't they tell you about him? I shook my head and he continued. He was a woodworker, the best there ever was. Someone so young rarely gets this good at something. And even though he wasn't a thinker, he liked to know things. Then what happened? I sensed sadness in his words. He made the biggest boat he could make and left the island in search of what is next. You see, people think I filled his head with these ideas. No, he was way ahead of me in his passion for finding out if there were more islands ahead of us. He seemed to be regretting something, or maybe he was defending himself against what others thought of him. Qilam continued. The entire village thinks he left because of his conversations with me. They don't believe me that it wasn't the case. Didn't they try to stop you from meeting me? I told him the truth about how people thought his ideas were crazy, and that I shouldn't believe what he had to say. He laughed. Yeah, crazy theories to explain a crazy world. Maybe the people are right. You are too young. You shouldn't be worrying about these things. Listening to someone's opinion about things is not dangerous. No one can force me into believing something I don't want to believe in, and I only believe in things that make sense to me. He laughed heartily and said, Ideas can be scary. You are too young to understand. An idea can cut deeper than the sharpest sword. Words are powerful. He paused and then continued in a firm tone. With words, you can motivate people to believe in lies. You already believe in many lies that they have been telling you. It's amazing how we are so blind and yet so proud of our beliefs. I was confused. Was I proud and blind? What do you mean? What lies? Go and live an easy life. Don't get entangled in these questions. He tried to push me away, but now I wanted to know even more. The more you hide, the more I want to know. If you do not tell me, I will talk to someone else. He replied knowingly, I know the type, the need to know. He sighed loudly and then continued, but if you talk to them, they will only tell you lies. Who are they? I asked. All of Serenus, the villagers, every one of them has either been brainwashed or is on the mission to tell lies. My curiosity was piqued. I needed to know what lies he was talking about. I begged, "Tell me the truth then." He frowned and watched me with sharp eyes for some time. I could see that he was fighting an inner struggle about whether to tell me or not. He stayed quiet for a moment, but then sat up and said, "Do you know the story of the evil wizard?" "No." He breathed out a deep sigh. "A powerful wizard lives on this island. His magical abilities are so great that he evades death. Nothing can kill him. He has been caught many times and has been killed too. But he comes back. His goal is to send people in search of more islands. People say he steals the souls of the unfortunate ones who fall for his tricks, and that is why he cannot be killed. The poem mentions him, remember? Catch the wizard, go past the fall. So many have tried to catch him, thinking it would lead them to another land past the fall. Of course, no one who went can come back to tell us if they did find a new world." He stopped and found me waiting intently to hear more. "I believe, and mind you, I'm not the only one. Many have believed that there is more to this world than we understand. Gods have created more lands, and our purpose is to find a way to those islands. Only the chosen few will ever reach the end. Why else would the gods give us the poem?" I don't know. It must mean something. This was all I could say for sure. "Exactly. The villagers want you to live here as if that is the purpose of life. That doesn't make any sense. Why would the gods send us a poem that says your world is so vast?" His voice was full of passion now. His words were so confident that they puzzled me. Why didn't anyone tell me about the evil wizard? But then, Qilam might really be crazy. Or he might be tricking me with his words. I didn't know if I could believe him, but I wanted to know what more he had to say. "What do you think the gods are telling us?" I asked. He continued in the same passionate tone. "Think about it. Someone created us. They sent us in a boat, and the only things they gave us were a poem and a watch. Why? If I sent someone to a world, why would I give them these things to start with? Right, because they hide answers in them. I would want them to find their way forward by following the instructions in the poem. Now, this is where most people differ from my views. I don't think the poem contains hidden clues or a riddle that needs to be solved. No, the gods wanted to make it easy to understand, so they wrote it simply. I think the poem's meaning is understood by reading it literally. Our vessel is sinking. This one is obvious. It's not the boat, or they would have said our boat is sinking. The vessel is another word for our body. It is the body that is dying. Surviving the tides means lasting long enough to reach what is next. Some people say tides are the hardships we face in our life. I think it's the tides, literally. I think the waves are bigger ahead of this island, so we need to prepare to survive those dangerous waters." He stopped and checked to see if I was following. I nodded, and he continued, "The end is coming. Open your eyes. This part is a warning that we will not live forever. Our vessel is sinking after all. Then it tells us to live and think, but don't you stall. We are supposed to do something and not take too long to do it. And what is it that we need to do? Catch the wizard, go past the fall. Is it just a coincidence that a wizard lives here? No! We are supposed to catch him and go forward." I interrupted his enthusiastic speech. "Why do you think people don't believe in all this?" His excited tone was replaced with a somber one. "They have given up. So many used to believe it, but when the wizard proved too powerful to be captured or killed, they started to think that the poem was misleading and the mission was impossible. I don't blame them. We have caught the wizard so many times. We kept him in the prison tree under the fall, but we didn't know what to do with him. He would come back if we killed him or sent him in the dark. Eventually, people stopped believing, and now no one is trying to catch the wizard. And when we are not trying to capture him, he is not attacking us either, so there is peace. Villagers prefer peace over finding answers." "But you think we should believe in the poem?" I asked. "Yes, but I'm not claiming to understand it fully. Alfred thought we were supposed to go past the fall, since we had already captured the wizard many times. He was a woodworker. He built the biggest boat he could and left the island searching for another land." Qilam's voice became sad. You think he made a mistake? I asked. He responded grimly, I don't know. It's possible I'm wrong about it, and that I encouraged Alfred to go into the dark end. It weighs heavily on my conscience that he may have died in vain. He was friends with Foray's apprentice. Everyone listens to what they think, so they say my words are dangerous for peace on the island. I try to stay away unless someone wants to know what I think because, there's a good chance that what I'm saying is right. This island could be a stepping stone to more amazing worlds ahead. Where is the wizard now? I believe he's still here, hiding and scheming. He keeps trying to find a way to go forward. While he is mighty in his abilities, you should know he is basically a coward. He wants others to try to go forward in unique new ways, and only when he is sure that it works will he go forward himself. Qilam finished the story and asked me to head back to the village before it got too dark. I wanted to hear more, but I did not want to roam in the forest after dark. I left with my head full of new answers and even more questions. I reached home and stayed in for the rest of the evening, thinking about Qilam's words. If he was right, this world was a temporary place, and we were supposed to go to the next one. But that was risky. It would be a safer choice to stay here, but then I may never find the answers. After thinking for hours, I decided I was too young to go on a mission to find new lands. It was a fact, after all, that even the critters in the swamp scared me at night. Catching a powerful wizard and discovering new worlds seemed an impossible task for me. I stopped thinking about these matters, but before that, I wrote down my newfound understanding on a piece of paper. Qilam thinks gods have sent us with a mission. We need to catch the wizard and go past the fall looking for new worlds. We are not supposed to stay here for long. The waves ahead are bigger and more dangerous, so Alfred made a big boat and left in it. He may have died, or he may have found the answers he was looking for. He was Amy's friend, and she thinks he might be dead. Then I started a fire and sat by it, listening to the sounds outside to take my mind off the topic. It had started raining again, but I was not worried. I had prepared for the rainy season with enough food and firewood to last me a few days in my home. And I had an umbrella to keep me dry if I needed to go out. It was still early, but the rain made me want to snuggle up in the blanket. The fire burned brightly and kept me warm. The soft, warm blanket around me felt comforting, even protective. The sound of footsteps startled me. Someone was coming. I looked through the window and found a person carrying a lantern, walking toward my home. My mind played tricks on me and filled me with sudden fear. The evil wizard could be coming to steal my soul. My breathing grew faster. I tried to push back the irrational thought and kept my eyes on the person outside. Soon, I recognized the visitor and was relieved to see that it was Amy. I opened the door to let her out of the rain. She left her umbrella on the side and asked if she could stay for the night. I was surprised and happy at the same time. The knowledge of a wizard living on the island was unsettling. I welcomed her company. She made tea as we chatted casually, and then she came to the reason for her visit.
I heard you were looking for Qilam. Did you meet him?
Yes, I met him. He told me about Alfred. I responded, Listen, I don't want to tell you what you should or should not do. I just want to share some things that Alfred told me.
He was my friend, and we talked about his conversations with Qilam in detail.
I tried to stop him from leaving, but he had made up his mind. I'm worried that you were on the same path. I quickly assured her, Don't worry, I have no plans to leave the island. She raised her eyebrows.
Well, that is great. Still, I want you to know that Qilam is not what he appears to be.
Alfred told me how he urged him to think of different ways to leave the island.
It was Qilam's idea to build a big boat. Alfred liked the idea, but it was Qilam who was behind it.
He convinced Alfred to leave and look for another island past the dark end.
Qilam made it sound like he was worried for Alfred, but Alfred still wanted to go.
I added, That is not what happened.
I want you to know that you cannot trust anything Qilam says.
He is full of lies. Did he talk to you about reading the poem literally? Yes, I said. I was curious to see what Amy thought of it.
Qilam had told me the villagers were lying,
and now Amy was saying the same about him.
Looking at her kind face, I hoped Qilam was the liar,
not her. I liked her, and the thought that she could be deceiving me was more troubling. She continued forcefully, It's all nonsense. If gods wanted to send a literal instruction, why call the body a vessel? Why say it is sinking instead of dying? I don't mean to say that I have the answers.
I'm just trying to point out that Qilam doesn't know it either.
No one knows. I've had these conversations with Alfred many times.
I know how Qilam manipulates people into leaving the island.
And I don't think Alfred is the only one.
Since Qilam started talking about the mission to find more lands, 4 other people have left the islands to light knows what fate.
Amy spoke with such insistence that I felt she really cared for me. We stayed up late and chatted about other things, but Amy made it clear that the reason she came to see me was to protect and warn me. I told her what Qilam said about the evil wizard. She nodded. Yes, that is correct, but the wizard hasn't been seen in a long time. The Seren think that he may have left the island, or maybe he's still here hiding and waiting for another victim to trap.
The wizard and Qilam's words are equally dangerous.
Both want to send people off the island to see what is next, and both are scared of trying it for themselves. A chilling thought crossed my mind. Qilam said the wizard wanted others to try to go forward, and only when he is sure that it works, he will go forward himself. According to Amy, Qilam was the one who was convincing people to go on. I had heard him talking about it, and I had to admit he was pretty convincing. What if Qilam is the wizard? I gave words to my thought in a shivering voice. Amy laughed. Honestly, I have thought the same thought so many times.
But we have known Qilam all his life.
He came before me, but people have seen him live among us since he came to the island in a boat. He's a coward and has the same ideas, but he is not evil. He hasn't hurt anyone except with his words, and the tree under the fall decided that he did not have magic, so he can't be the wizard. How does this test for magic work? And why is the tree used as a prison? I had thought about this question so many times that I was surprised I hadn't asked it yet. She explained, the magic of the tree under the fall stops magical beings from leaving it. Anyone without magic can come and go freely. And it is a prison in the daytime only. At sunset, the barrier disappears, so we cannot keep anyone imprisoned forever. But Faray has magic and she can go in and out. On the day of my arrival, I saw Faray enter the prison tree. It was still daytime, and Faray could leave freely. Amy smiled proudly and said, that is an excellent observation. Faray was able to enter and leave the tree because she was wearing a small moonlight vial in her necklace. You are her apprentice. Does that mean you also have magic? What can you do? She smiled and said, yes, Faray and I can, for the lack of a better word, call the light. This ability is our magical power, and through it we can capture and store it in a vial, and then use the lights to heal others. We cannot do any other magic. We continued chatting late into the night. Amy told me that she was still learning to capture the lights. She was also very excited about a new project that Faray and Kratos were working on. I had heard Kratos and Eater mention it at the forge. She had to go to work in the early morning, so we had to go to sleep. I slept on the rug in front of the stone fireplace and asked her to sleep in the bed. She hesitated but agreed when I insisted. This was the least I could do to repay her.